main protagonist, Kat, was murdered by Freddy Krueger. My question for you is, what hairstyle did Kat prefer wearing? Answer the question in the comments section, and from the correct answers, I will select the winner, and they will receive A Nightmare on Elm Street, Suffer the Children. Okay, with that fun business out of the way, let's return to the book, shall we? A Nightmare on Elm Street, Suffer the Children, by David Bishop, Chapter 15. Heather jerked her hand away from Lloyd. She was in the hospital room again, bewildered to find herself in the same place as before. Chris was still standing in the corner by the window, where he had been when they were hugging. He looked like she felt, displaced and dazed. It seemed like hours had passed since her fingers brushed Lloyd's skin. "Did you see all that?" Chris asked. "All of what?" "Krueger. He took us to his boiler room and showed us Kat being tortured." Heather nodded. "And he gave us a choice, kill for him or be killed by him." Chris's head sagged forward. "I was hoping it was only me, but if you saw too, then Alex and Peter must have been in the nightmare as well. Krueger can bring all of us together whenever he wants." Heather bit her fingernails. "How can he manipulate us so easily?" "That's the least of our problems," Chris said. "We have to decide whether we want to be his pawns, or else we end up like Kat," Heather cut in, feeling overwhelmed by a cold, numbing dread. Everything she'd seen while touching Lloyd was all true. Somehow she knew that within 24 hours they would either all be dead or Krueger's slaves, killing for a killer. She approached Chris, fear chilling her. "Hold me, please." Alex was awoken by the alarm clock ringing on her bedside table. It was 6. She rolled over to switch it off and was startled to find Peter next to her. He suddenly sat up in bed, hands clutching the covers like a security blanket. "No, I won't do it. You can't make—" Peter abruptly stopped speaking, noticing Alex was beside him in the bed, staring at him. "Oh, thank God. I thought he was going to kill me, kill all of us." His voice trailed off. "I was having another nightmare." Alex rested one of her hands on his shoulder, trying to soothe Peter. "I know. I saw it too. I guess we all did." "But shouldn't the hypnosil have protected us?" "Krueger's found a way to overcome it," Alex decided. The sound of someone coming up the stairs caught her attention. "Oh shit, Mom's home and I've got a naked boy in my bed," Alex thought. Alex shoved Peter onto the floor while searching for her panties. "You've got to hide, now." "Where?" "Just do it, okay?" Alex hissed. There was a knock on her door. "Hey, Alex, I'm home. I thought I'd see—" Joyce opened the door and glanced inside, her voice trailing off. Alex was lying on the bed, one arm over her breast while her other hand lingered near her crotch. She did her best to look surprised and angry. "Mom, what the hell are you doing? Can't I have any privacy?" "I'm sorry, honey. I didn't realize—" Joyce's mouth was still working, but words seemed to fail her. Instead, she blushed a deep red, embarrassed at having walked in on her daughter doing heaven knows what. "I'm sorry. I'll just—" "Jesus, Mom, chill out, okay?" Alex pulled the sheet up over herself. "I wasn't doing anything like, you know." "Of course not." Joyce's gaze began to wander towards the pile of discarded garments on the floor. "It's just that—" Alex realized she would have a hard time explaining how Peter's clothes were in her room. "I'm fine," she said quickly, trying to distract her mom's gaze. "I can take care of myself, okay?" "I so wish that were true. I came home early because the doctor's office called to say that you never turned up for your appointment." "I told you I wouldn't," Alex snapped back. In truth, she'd forgotten about it, having been too busy getting Peter into her bed and all. But even if she had remembered, she wouldn't have gone. It was too late for that shit. Joyce shook her head. "Put some clothes on and come downstairs. I really need to talk to you." She retreated to the door. "Do you want anything?" Some peace and quiet would be nice," Alex said sarcastically. "I meant, do you want a drink, Alexandra?" Alex frowned, embarrassed by her own petulance. "Sorry, Mom. A Coke would be nice." "Fine, I'll see you downstairs in a minute." When her mom was gone, Alex glanced across at the bathroom, half expecting to see black blood spattered on the white tiles. That had all been part of the nightmare, too. But sleeping with Peter, that was real. Alex realized they hadn't used any protection. Peter had been a virgin, too, so she was probably safe from any infections. but that wouldn't stop her from getting pregnant. Fuck it, she decided. If Kruger has his way, we'll probably be dead before the week is out. Getting knocked up is the least of my problems. Jesus, everything was such a mess. A week ago, she'd been just another student at Springwood High, a ghost trying to blend into the background, a teenage girl with a history of psychiatric problems and a father figure fixture. Now she was under penalty of death from a psychopathic maniac in her dreams, had lost her virginity to a math geek, and could well be on her way to joining America's teenage pregnancy statistics. Amazing how much could change in a few days. Christ only knows what the next few would bring. Is it safe? A timid voice asked from beneath the bed. For the moment, Alex replied. You come out now. Peter emerged from hiding, hands clutched over his genitals. He grinned mischievously, almost getting caught. It was kind of exciting. Forget it, Peter, Alex said, shaking her head. I think even Mom would notice if we went for an encore right now. You better get dressed. Okay. He recovered his clothes and started pulling them on. I'll go downstairs and keep her busy in the kitchen. Once you hear us talking, you can go out the front door, but quietly. Avoid the third step from the bottom. It always creaks. Call me when you get home so I know you got back safely, okay? Alex pulled out a t-shirt from a drawer and put it on over her head before stepping into her jeans. Before leaving the room, she stopped and gave Peter a deep, passionate kiss. Thank you, she whispered. What for? For making my first time special. You were the one in control, he said bashfully. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was good, Alex said, kissing him again. It was better than good. Well, you know what they say, practice makes perfect. We could always, Peter suggested playfully. Alex shoved him back on the bed and retreated to the door. Remember, keep off the third step from the bottom. Are you sure you want to do this? Heather and Chris were parked outside his home. It was dusk by the time they arrived, and a handful of lights were on inside the house. Heather stroked his face, concern etched on her features. He nodded. I have to. Alex was right. Kruger has tainted us all, and he's trying to make us into monsters like him. I have to face the consequences of what I've done. It's the only way to make peace with my family, with my father. I've resented the way he runs my life for so long, but I've got to stop hating him. If I don't let go of that hate, I'll end up like Kruger. We all will. Heather smiled. You'll never be like him, Chris. He got out, pausing to kiss her goodnight. I'll see you tomorrow, babe. Where? At the graveyard. We should pay our last respects to Kat. Her family will have left by 1. We can meet then. I'll tell the others, she volunteered. Thanks. Chris smiled at her. Wish me luck. I'll pray for you, Heather replied, surprising even herself. She hadn't prayed since she was a little girl, but she hadn't believed in monsters since she was a child either. So asking God, if there was a God, for his help didn't seem strange anymore. I need to have something to believe in, Heather decided. Alex found her mom talking with a stranger in the kitchen. He was tall and middle-aged, brown hair thinning above an intelligent face. The man was dressed in a dark blue suit, and a doctor's bag was resting by his legs. This didn't look good, Alex decided. This didn't look good at all. Who's this? She demanded. Alex, this is Dr. Taubman, Joyce replied. Since you missed your appointment with him today, I asked if he'd make a home visit. You brought a shrink here? I'm not a shrink, Taubman began, smiling at Alex benignly. While I do maintain a psychiatric practice here in Springwood, I'm actually a specialist in the field of adolescent and juvenile alienation. So you're a shrink that likes to play with children, Alex sneered. Terrific. There's a name for people like you. Alexandra, Joyce snapped. There is no need to be abusive. Dr. Taubman has kindly given up his evening to talk with you. He didn't come here to be insulted or attacked. Then he came to the wrong house. Alex could hear Peter creeping down the stairs behind her, and kept her voice raised, hoping it would cover his departure. I don't need another egghead telling me I suffer from alienation. I'm a teenager, for fuck's sake. That's what we do. Your concerns are understandable, Alexandra, Taubman began. Bite me, Alex spat back. She heard the front door click shut. Look, I know you both mean well, but this isn't going to solve anything, okay? How do you know? If you don't give it a chance, Taubman persisted. Please, honey, Joyce said, desperation evident in her voice. For me? Will you do it for me? Alex sighed. Okay, where do you want me? Taubman smiled. On the couch is traditional. She rolled her eyes. Great. Now he's a comedian, too. Alex, her mom warned. Yeah, I know. Give him a chance. She stalked into the lounge and threw herself on the couch. Taubman and Joyce followed her in. Will this do? The psychiatrist nodded. He removed a notepad and pen from his bags. Now, Miss Corwin, could you dim the lights for us? And it's for the best if you take the phone off the hook. We don't wish to be disturbed. Bit late for that, isn't it? Alex joked as she watched him prepare for their session. And what do we have for contestant number 1, Dr. Taubman? Ink blots, word association, memory regression? He smiled thinly. Hypnosis, actually. Tell me, are you on any medication? Hypnosil, for all the good it's doing. Hypnosil? Joyce asked. It's a dream suppressant, Taubman said. Interesting. Still, it shouldn't interfere with the procedure, Alexandra. If you'd please, I'd like you to relax. My name's Alex, she protested. Fine. He switched on a pin light and shone the beam into her eyes. Alex, if you'd like to relax, empty your head of all thoughts and listen to the sound of my voice. Let my words soothe you. Let them push you away and push away all your cares and worries and concerns. Let yourself go. Let everything go. Let your imagination roam freely. Now, imagine yourself afloat on an ocean. Alex could feel her eyelids getting heavier. She wanted to stay awake, to make a nonsense of his supposed expertise. But sheer exhaustion was getting the better of her. It had been too long since she'd slept properly, without dreams, without nightmares, without fear or terror of what she'd find when she opened her eyes again. The darkness washed over her, around her, warm like an embrace, comforting and familiar. Peter closed the back door at his house and smiled. Being with Alex, it was everything he'd ever imagined and more. The way she'd touched him, guided him, let him be inside her. Just thinking about it was getting him excited again. Then Peter remembered the nightmare that had followed and his smile faded. He thought about Kruger's gloating, the shame of pissing himself in front of the others. It was only a nightmare, but they'd seen it. They'd all witnessed it. They all witnessed his humiliation. He never wanted that to happen again. Where the fuck have you been? A voice slurred from a corner in the kitchen. Peter looked around the breakfast counter and found his father on the floor, clutching a bottle of Jim Beam in one hand, a revolver in the other. Dad, are you okay? Do I look okay to you? What's going on? Where'd you get the gun? Didn't know I had this, did you? Kept it a secret all these years. Peter's father pulled a box of ammunition from the breast pocket of his shirt and tipped the contents out on the kitchen floor. He began loading bullets into the revolver, his fingers fumbling with each round before shoving them into place. How long have you been drinking this time? Peter asked, his eyes noticing the remains of an empty Jim Beam bottle shattered against a nearby wall. Long enough, his father slurred. Why, you want some? No, Dad, I'm fine, Peter said, trying to humor him. Good, 'cause I ain't sharing my drink with no sissy boy. What did you call me? Peter's father sneered. You heard. How can you say that? I'm your son. You ain't no son of mine. Mr. O'Mahony finished loading the revolver and then took another swig from the bottle. Looking down your nose at me? Thinking you're better than you are? You don't know the half of it, boy. You should be down on your knees, thanking me for taking in your slut of a mother. Peter could feel his face reddening with anger. What did you say? Your mother was a little whore. She fucked every player on the football team that summer. She was good. I'll give her that. Don't talk about Mom like that, Peter warned. When she went down on you, it felt like all your Christmases were coming at once. You know what I means? I said don't talk about Mom like that. Course, she got knocked up. Bad girls always do. And somebody had to marry the slut. We drew straws in the locker room. Guess who lost? I don't want to hear this, Peter said, shaking his head. So I walked down the aisle, her 5 months gone, and it's showing plenty by then. Why do you think we never had any wedding photos in the houses? Shut up, you old bastard. No, you're the bastard, boy. You certainly ain't my son, that's for damn sure. No son of mine spends all his time reading books and staying indoors and playing with himself. You don't think I don't know what you do up there, you little pervert. Beating off over your computer, acting like you've got a pair. You make me sick. Peter's father tried pulling himself to his feet, but collapsed back to the floor again, defeated by his inebriated legs. I've been ashamed of you since the day you was born, boy. No, from before the day you were born. You know what else? I was glad when your mom fucking died. Bitch had been fucking around on me for years, banging every bastard that came through the front door. Served her right. I said shut up, Peter shouted, his anger building up inside him. Cancer was too good for her. I'm gonna kill you, Dad. No, boy, I'm gonna kill you. Mr. O'Mahony aimed the revolver at his son. What? You think I got this old piece out to finish myself off? You ain't as smart as you think you as smart as you think you are. Guess your old man can still teach you a trick or two after all. He smiled and cocked the revolver. Pull that trigger and you'll be a corpse, Peter promised. All I ever wanted was respect from you, his father said. I didn't care if you loved me. I didn't care if you hated me either. I just wanted your respect, and you couldn't even give me that. It's difficult to respect someone who beats you up every night, Peter said. You can only hate them, and God knows I've always hated you. Well, the feeling's mutual, his father replied, finger tightening around the trigger. Goodbye, nope. Goodbye, boy. But before he could fire the gun, its barrel began moving sideways. What the fuck? Peter was holding a hand out towards the revolver, controlling its movement despite being on the other side of the kitchen from his dad. I won't let you hurt me again, he hissed. My wrist, you're hurting my wrist, his father protested. The hand holding the gun was twisting in the air, curling slowly around so the barrel was aimed at him instead of his son. I don't understand. How are you do? If anyone's going to eat a bullet tonight, it's going to be you, Peter said. He pushed his hand forward through the air and the gun mimicked the action, moving closer to Mr. O'Mahony's head until the muzzle was pressing against the drunk's forehead. Lower, Peter commanded, and the barrel slid down his dad's sweating face, past the eyes and nose until it reached the mouth. Open. Mr. O'Mahony's lips parted involuntarily. Now bite down on the barrel, bitch. Peter's father tried to protest, but his words were cut short. I didn't say you could speak, did I? Now bite down. His father's teeth clamped around the barrel, forcing themselves into the metal, grinding against the revolver. Peter walked across the kitchen and crouched beside his father. Any last words? Oh, Mr. Mahoney stared at his son, disbelief in his eyes, sweat dribbling down his face. A pool of yellow appeared between his legs on the kitchen floor. You might not have loved Mom, but I did. I want you to think about her while you're lying there on the floor. Think about her lying on the hospital bed, the pain she must have gone through while she was dying. I want you to experience a fraction of the discomfort and terror she felt, waiting to die all those months. Peter straightened up again. I should leave you here like this all night. One move and the gun would blow your brains out the back of your head. One lapse in concentration from me and you'd be dead. A sad old jock who took the easy way out. That's what the cops would think. But I'm not going to do that. I'm better than that. I'm better than you. Peter turned away dismissively. Remember this. I let you live. Remember the fear you felt here today. That's how I felt every day growing up in this house. Remember all of it, you bastard. Alex opened her eyes. So much for Dr. Taubman and his amazing powers of hypnosis. Don't give up the day job, she thought idly, before realizing things were all askew. It was as if the whole room had turned upside down and she was lying on the ceiling. Stranger still, she could see herself below on the couch, the psychiatrist sitting close by her, and her mom watching from the door. Shit, it worked. I'm having an out-of-body experience just like Kat did. That sent a chill through her. Alex watched, fascinated, as her physical body shivered in response on the couch. Freaky. Taubman nodded to her mom. She's under. I'll begin with a few simple questions to test if it worked. He leaned closer to the couch. Alex, can you hear me? Alex was going to reply, but another voice issued from her hypnotized body. Alex isn't here, asshole. Taubman and Joyce reacted with surprise, but they weren't as shocked as Alex. She recognized the voice. It was Kruger. That bastard was using her like a radio. He must have pushed her out, taken advantage of the hypnosis to seize control of her body. Shit, there was no knowing what the sick fuck was going to say or do now. Doctor, what? Joyce began, but Taubman motioned her to silence. If Alex isn't there, who is? He asked gently. You can call me Fred, the gravelly, sinister voice replied from Alex's lips. Fred? Or Daddy. I like being called Daddy, Kruger hissed. No, Alex shouted from the ceiling, but nobody heard her. Nobody noticed her. No, don't listen to him. He's lying. I'm up here. Where is Alex at now, Fred? Taubman asked. That bitch is mine now. Mom's little whore. Hey, Joyce, did you know she spent the afternoon getting bald upstairs? Kruger, stop this, Alex pleaded. Don't do this to me, please. She goes like a train. Your little slut going choo-choo-choo. Alex watched her mom run from the room. Taubman persisted with his questions. What is it you want? Pain, terror, fear, Kruger snarled. All my favorite things. Why? Why not? But you must have a reason. Because I enjoy it, asshole. Just like little Alex enjoys cutting herself. Because it's a rush. Taubman sat back in his seat. I'm going to end this session now. I think it's for the best. I'm going to count to 3 and snap my fingers. When I do, the hypnotic trance will end and Alex will wake up. 1. You haven't got a fucking clue, have you, Doc? Kruger taunted. 2. You must be new in town. If you haven't heard of me, ask Sheriff Williams. He knows about me. 3. Tell him Fred Kruger sent you. Taubman was about to snap his fingers, but stopped at hearing that name. You're Kruger? In the flesh. From the ceiling, Alex watched as one of her hands rose from the couch, grabbing Taubman's left wrist. What are you doing? The psychiatrist protested. You can't. Alex's other hand took a hold of Taubman's pinky and yanked it sharply backwards, so the little finger touched the back of his hand. The bones snapping like twigs, Taubman screamed in agony. Alex watched as her body laughed at the psychiatrist's pain. You said you wanted to snap your fingers, Doc, so I was just giving you a helping hand. Catch you later, fucker. Alex felt herself being sucked back down to her body. She sat up as her mom returned to the room, brought back by the psychiatrist's cry of pain. Taubman was rocking in his seat, nursing his broken finger, staring in disbelief at Alex. What happened? Joyce asked in a panic. It wasn't me, I swear, Alex tried to explain. It was Kruger. When Taubman hypnotized me, Kruger took over my body. Sweet Jesus, Joyce gasped, looking at her daughter as if she was staring at a stranger. Dr. Taubman, are you all right? He shook his head, the color draining from his face. No, I've never... your daughter, she... He gave up trying to explain, preferring to concentrate on the pain from his ruptured finger. I'll call you an ambulance, Joyce decided, retreating to the hallway. Alex moved closer to Todman, talking to him quietly. Please, Doc, you've got to believe me. I didn't hurt you. It was Kruger, she hissed urgently. Stay away from me, young lady, was his only reply. A moment later, Joyce returned. It'll be here in just a few minutes. Todman stood up and approached her. Mrs. Corwin, could I have a few words with you in the kitchen, please? Of course. Joyce moved aside to let him pass, all the while watching her daughter. Alexandra, stay in here while I look after Dr. Todman, all right? Alex nodded numbly. She could feel her mom's fear like a fist of ice. Alex waited until her mom and Todman had gone into the kitchen before creeping into the hall, straining to hear their hushed voices. I don't know how to say this without sounding overly dramatic, Mrs. Corwin, but I believe your daughter is, seriously disturbed. Alex is certainly delusional. She exhibits symptoms consistent with multiple personality disorder and displays severe sociopathic tendencies. I don't understand. How could this have happened, and why now? You say she's been treated for self-harming in the past? Yes, but that stopped a year ago. I watch her very carefully, and there have been no obvious symptoms of it restarting until a few days ago. I found bloody sheets in her room, and she started skipping class. Principal Shea suspended her from school, and now I don't know where she goes or who she really is. Alex could hear her mom gently sobbing. Todman didn't speak again until the tears had subsided. I know this isn't easy to hear, but Mrs. Corwin, I believe Alexandra is a danger both to herself and to others. You can see what she did to me, snapping my finger, as you or I would snap the wishbone from a Thanksgiving turkey. I don't want you getting hurt like I did, or worse. What do you suggest? Here it comes, Alex thought. Rubber room for Mrs. Corwin. I've only been in Springwood a few months, but I know there is an excellent care facility for disturbed teenagers at Weston Hills. It's dealt with causes like Alex, providing a safe environment where unhappy youths can get better, bit by bit. I don't know, Joyce whispered. Don't do it, Alex urged. It's for her own good, Todman said. Please don't do it. I need to think about this too. I need to sleep on it, Joyce decided eventually. The wail of an approaching siren signaled the ambulance's arrival. Alex hurried back to the couch and waited while her mom escorted the injured psychiatrist outside. Once Todman was gone, Joyce came nervously into the room. How do you feel? She asked from the door as if afraid to come closer. I'm fine, Alex said. How's the shrink? Several broken bones, ruptured tendons. His hand's a mess. Mom, whatever he said, you know he's wrong, don't you? I'm not sure. I'm not sure of anything anymore, Joyce admitted. You know what these psychiatrists are like. They're always looking for the worst. Maybe. Alex stood up, shoving her hands in the back pockets of her jeans. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed, okay? Joyce nodded, deep in thought. Alex gave her a kiss on the way out of the room, trying not to notice how her mom flinched away from the show of affection. Heather found her mom slumped over a bottle of gin in the kitchen. She debated trying to wake her, but decided not to bother. God knows her mom wouldn't thank her for the effort. Instead, Heather went upstairs and brushed her teeth, getting ready for bed. The tune from an old nursery rhyme jangled around inside her head. Try as she might, the words would not come, lingering beyond reach at the edge of her mind. Heather went to her bedroom and changed into an old pair of pajamas. She always put them on when she wasn't feeling well, when colds or flu or cramps got the better of her. After brushing her long blonde hair 100 strokes with the left hand, another 100 with the right, she knelt beside the bed and looked up at a crucifix fixed to the wall. It felt strange, like being a child again, kneeling down to ask God for help. But they needed all the help they could get, and if the Almighty felt like joining in, so much the better. Now all she needed was a prayer. Heather smiled as a memory of one she used to recite long ago returned. Closing her eyes, she began to whisper, Now I lay me down to sleep. Another verse entered her thoughts, the words for the nursery rhyme tune, coming unhidden into her mind. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. 3, 4, better lock your door. If I should die before I wake. 5, 6, grab a crucifix. I pray the Lord my soul to take. 7, 8, better stay up late. Heather shuddered and reached for the bottle of Hypnosil by her bed, popped 2 pills into her mouth, and dry swallowed them both. 9, 10, never sleep again. She knelt on the bed and took the crucifix from its mounting on the wall. Clutching the cross to her chest, she got beneath the covers and closed her eyes. Let me have one night of sleep without nightmares, she prayed. Just one. It was late when Sheriff Williams arrived at Springwood General's emergency room. He'd been on his way home when the call came through. Some shrink called Todman was at the hospital and wanted to talk about an FK scenario. Dispatch knew better than to broadcast Kruger's name out loud, especially to the sheriff. Hell, it was Williams who had forbidden anyone from saying that bastard's name in the station house. The sheriff arrived as Todman was leaving, the psychiatrist his left hand encased in plaster. Been in the wars, Doc? This was done by a teenage girl in a state of hypnosis. She started speaking in a man's voice, making all sorts of threats and abusive comments. Then she nearly tore my little finger off. You want to lodge a complaint against her? No, Todman said wearily. This girl. She claimed she was being possessed by the spirit of a man called Fred Kruger. Don't say the name, Williams warned, his genial manner gone in a moment. Don't even think it. The psychiatrist nodded. When I first arrived in Springwood, I was taken on a tour of Weston Hills. One of the doctors there explained a little of the history of such cases to me, how the teenagers of this town have been affected. And what was the girl's name? Corwin? Alex Corwin? Yes. How did you... That doesn't matter, the sheriff said, sighing heavily. Where is she now? Still at home with her mother. I advised Mrs. Corwin that Alex should be committed to Weston Hills, but she wants time to think it over. I should have acted sooner, Williams muttered. There's just no way of knowing how far it's spread already. Spread? You talk about this case as if it's an epidemic. I believe Alex Corwin is suffering from mental illness, Sheriff. That isn't infectious. No, but hysteria is. Could we have this Corwin girl forcibly committed for reasons of public safety? Todman shook his head. Not without her mother's permission. This is America, Sheriff, not a police state. She isn't exactly a terrorist. That's exactly what she is. Williams waved away Todman's objections. I'm not saying she hijacks planes or blows up buildings, but Alex Corwin is spreading fear through this town, creating terror, even if she doesn't realize it yet. We've got to find a way to contain her. Stop this before it goes any further. Don't you understand? How? The sheriff activated his radio. This is Williams. I want round-the-clock surveillance on 1428 Elm Street, starting immediately. I don't care who you have to pull in from off-duty. Do it. If a teenage girl tries to leave that house, she must be stopped. They can tell her she's under house arrest. Hell, they can tell her whatever they like. But she must not be let out of that place. Got it? Satisfied with the response he got, Williams turned back to Todman. You need a lift, Doc? The psychiatrist nodded. I guess I do. My car's still parked on Elm Street. I'll drive. You tell me everything you know about Alex Corwin. Chapter 16. You find the doorway. Not where you expected it to be, but you find it. One step and you're through into the sticky yellow light, clouds of steam billowing up from the boiler room below. A voice of rusted steel and pain laughs at your fear, beckoning you closer, luring you down the spiral staircase. You smell rust and decay and terror, bitter in your mouth, choking your breath, suffocating. Fat drops of warm water spatter your skin from above, falling from an invisible ceiling. Chains chink and clink in the air as you pass them, descending still, lower and lower, until at last you reach bottom. What do you want? The monster breathes from behind you. I don't want to die, you admit. Kill or be killed. You know the drill. He hisses, but I don't want to hurt anyone. Not anymore. That didn't stop you before, fucker! I'll do it, you say. I'll do what you want. Kruger laughs at you. And I'll be your disciple if you spare me. Why should I? I'll be whatever you want. Just don't hurt me. You'll be my good right hand among the waking. You'll kill and maim and torture, all to save your sorry skin. He laughs at your cowardice. You're ashamed, hating yourself, despairing, but still you nod. Kruger comes closer, his breath on your neck, his fingernails sliding across your skin. Very well. Prove yourself. Kill for me and I let you live. Who should I kill, you ask, not daring to look your master in the eye. You already know. Kruger laughs and you stumble away, terror and excitement fighting for control of your heart. Your breath coming in short gasps, the fear and the thrill of what you're going to do already coursing through your veins. You will kill for your master, and you will enjoy it. Alex opened her eyes, still gasping for breath. That wasn't me, she told herself over and over. That wasn't me. I did not just make a deal with Kruger, did I? No, I couldn't. I wouldn't. Alex sat up in bed, drawing her knees closer, hugging them to her chest. I have to believe that wasn't me with Kruger. But if it wasn't her, who was it? Peter, Heather, or Chris? One of them had gone to Kruger, joined with him, allied themselves to the monster. One of them had betrayed her, and the others to save their own skin. But which one? Alex knew how frightened Peter was of Kruger, but that fear counted against him. She couldn't imagine Peter having the courage to face Kruger alone. Couldn't believe he would betray her. That left Heather and Chris. Surely Heather wouldn't align herself with that bastard. Alex thought long and hard before having to admit she didn't know Heather well enough to have an answer for that question. That left Chris. He was angry enough to embrace what Kruger was offering. The look in his eyes when he hit her at Heather's place, Chris scared the shit out of Alex. There was a reckless fury inside him, a burning rage waiting for the chance to escape. She could imagine Chris killing for Kruger and enjoying the experience, enjoying the power of taking somebody else's life. It very well could be Chris. Or it could be me, Alex admitted. Watching from the ceiling as her physical self attacked that shrink was very brutal. The way she had snapped his fingers backwards, it was just chilling. Yes, Kruger had been controlling her body. At least that was how it seemed at the time. How do I know that wasn't me pretending to be Kruger? How do I know all of this isn't some kind of displacement mental activity, a massive self-delusion? How can I be sure that I'm not creating the Kruger persona to excuse myself from taking responsibility for my own actions? How do I know that wasn't me in the vision, making a deal with the devil? Alex looked at the cuts on her arm that appeared when she'd first been sliced by Kruger's blades in one of her nightmares. How do I know I didn't do that to myself, like my mom thinks? The truth was Alex didn't know. She couldn't know. Maybe Todman was right. Maybe she was suffering from whatever shit he'd been saying to her mom. Maybe she was wigging out big time. Let's face it, Alex told herself. I'd be the last one to know. She smiled. Sitting in bed and holding a conversation in my head probably wasn't a good sign either, she decided. Fuck this shit, she announced to the empty bedroom and got up yawning. Rain battered the window, trying to get inside. Alex wandered over to the glass and peered out into the downpour. Why did it always rain for funerals? She remembered standing under an umbrella when the last of her grandparents were buried, years ago. The mud had squelched over the sides of her shiny new shoes, bought specially for the occasion. Her mom had scolded her afterwards and then burst into tears. Yeah, funerals were always guaranteed to be a laugh riot, right? Cats would be no different. Movement on the street caught her eye. A police car stopped across the road from the house, taking position behind another patrol vehicle. The two drivers got out and talked to each other in the rain, both glancing across at Alex's home several times. Eventually, one car left, but the new arrival remained, its driver keeping watch over Elm Street. No, not Elm Street, Alex realized. He's watching our house. My house. What the hell was going on? The phone rang, taking her away from the window. Hey, Alex, it's Heather. Yesterday afternoon, did you... The boiler room with Kruger? Yeah. I was there, too. So was Peter. We were all there. We all saw the same thing, Heather. That's what I was afraid of, Heather said. How is Kruger able to bring us together in one nightmare like that? I don't know. Peter and I were both dosed with Hypnosil at the time, but it didn't do us any good. Alex remembered the cop car outside. Heather, have you got police watching your house from the road? No, at least not that I've noticed. I can go check. Alex waited while Heather went to see. She almost hoped they were all being watched. That would be less frightening. Heather returned to the phone. No, nobody outside. Why? Have you got... Yeah, Alex explained. Went on to explain what had happened with Dr. Taubman as well. Guess I'm under surveillance or something. Well, find a way to sneak out, Heather replied. Chris thinks the four of us should meet. Talk about what Kruger said. If one of us gives in to that monster, we'll all end up dead, or worse. Alex thought about what she'd seen in her vision. It might already be too late. Still, it was worth a try. Where and when? The graveyard, after 1. It'll give us a chance to say goodbye to Kat. I've already talked to Peter about it, and he said he'd be there. Alex could hear knocking on a door at Heather's house. Mom? Can you get that? I'm on the phone. Mom? Silence followed, but no response came, except more knocking. I've got to go, Heather told Alex. Someone's at the front door. My mom must have already staggered off to work, nursing one of her killer hangovers. I'll see you at 1, Alex promised and hung up the phone. That's if I can find a way past my shadow outside, she realized. Heather hurried downstairs and opened the front door. Hey, what are you doing here? Can I come in? The new arrival asked. Heather let him enter and then closed the door after double-checking there were no police cars watching the house. God, being around Alex is making me paranoid, Heather decided. She looked at her visitor. So why the surprise visit? The rain finally let up about midday, much to the relief of Officer Goodman. He'd been sitting outside 1428 Elm Street all morning, dreading that girl trying to leave the house. Chasing teenagers down the sidewalk in the rain was not his idea of fun. Hell, why did they even have to keep watch on this place? He had a stack of yellowing paperwork on his desk at the station that he was planning to tackle today until landing this ass-numbing assignment. The older cops spent most days bitching about their hemorrhoids. I'll be an expert myself if something doesn't happen here soon, Goodman decided. Dispatch to Goodman, come in. This is Goodman. What is it, Lois? Got an emergency call. Can you respond? You know I'm watching the Corwin girl's house. Give it to someone else. This call is from the girl's house, Goodman. She says there's an intruder coming in through a basement window at the back. Can you see anything? Shit. He twisted around his seat, but nothing was obvious. No, I'll have to go check it out. Better send another car here. Goodman out. The police officer eased himself out of the driver's seat, adjusting his holster, cuffs, and nightstick to more comfortable positions on his belt, and began jogging across the road to the house. Looking back on it later, Goodman realized he should have been waited for backup to arrive before investigating. But an emergency was an emergency, even if the person under attack was also under surveillance, right? Wrong. Not when it's a diversion. At least that's what Sheriff Williams shouted at him later. Peter and Chris were already at the graveyard gates when Alex arrived. She hadn't been sure what to wear. It was a funeral after all, but eventually opted for black jeans and a dark top. The others were also somberly dressed, out of respect for Kat. The hearse and family car went in about a half an hour ago, Peter told Alex. They should be coming out again any minute. This is probably them, Chris said, ushering the others away from the gates. Once the hearse and cortege had passed, the 3 teenagers walked into the cemetery. It was a vast field of grass and stone, crosses and headstones evenly spaced on the undulating green, the last resting place of Springwood residents stretching into the distance. Tree-lined avenues divided the gardens of the dead, while more elaborate crypts stood up grassy knolls. The air was heavy and humid, whiffs of steam gently rising from puddles evaporating in the afternoon sun. Alex could smell the crisp, tangy scent of freshly cut lawn. Imagine having the job of keeping everything neat, coming to work each day in a field of memorials and weeping relatives. When I go, it's crematorium time for me. Dead girl, lightly toasted. Better that than slowly rotting into worm food. A box full of maggots as your last repose. Chris paused to talk with one of the ground staff who pointed along a road to the right before moving on. He says today's burials are all on the eastern section. They'll still be filling in Kat's grave, so it should be obvious. Shouldn't we wait for Heather? Alex asked. Chris shrugged. Yeah, I guess so. The three of them sat down on the curb, watching the cemetery staff going about their jobs, tending to the graves and flower beds and trees. After a minute, Peter cleared his throat, the silence seemingly too much for him. I never used to think about dying, you know. Before last week, I liked to kid myself that I was immortal, and that dying was something that happened to old people, but now... You think about it all the time, Chris said. Peter nodded. Don't you now? Kruger ain't going to get the better of me, Chris vowed. He's just another bully, like Johnston. Tell that to Kat, Alex said flatly, or Lloyd. See if they agree with you. I'm saying what I think, okay? Chris snapped. You got a problem with me expressing my opinion? This is a free country, isn't it? Long as you don't fall asleep, she observed. Once you start dreaming, you're in Kruger's domain. Even the bravest person could give in to him. Chris stood up, looming over her. What are you accusing me of? Nothing. Just making sure we're still on the same side. He pointed a finger accusingly at Alex. I don't need a lecture from you. I got enough of that shit at home. She arched an eyebrow at him. How is your dad? Fuck you! Peter hurriedly got between the two of them. Hey, everybody calm down, okay? We're here for Kat. Chris turned away in disgust, checking his watch. It's long gone 1. I say we find Kat's grave, get this over with. Heather can catch up with us later. Now you're making sense, Alex agreed, leading the way east through the gardens of stone. Peter and Chris followed her, Chris still muttering under his breath. Alex could feel waves of anger and hatred surging from him, violence bubbling below the surface. It was a murderous rage, but did that make him a murderer? Someone willing to kill to save themselves? It took 5 minutes to reach Kat's grave. As they approached 2 gravediggers, they saw that they were rolling up a green carpet from around the edges of the freshly filled grave. They confirmed Kat was buried there. Walker K. Yeah, this is her. But you missed the service. It was an hour ago, the senior worker said before leaving with his colleague. Sorry. There was no headstone at the grave yet, of course, but Alex could feel Kat's presence, mournfully lingering in the air. She knelt beside the grave and rested her hands in the dirt, digging her fingers into the soil. I wonder what Kat would say if she was here, Pete murmured. I'm dying for a cigarette or something like that, probably, Alex suggested with a smile. Chris crouched beside her. You can sometimes sense what people are feeling, right? Can you do the same with dead people? Chris nodded. I don't know, Alex said, but I'll try. She closed her eyes and reached deeper into the soil, exploring, searching for emotions amidst the dirt. No, there's nothing here anymore. It's... Her voice trailed away, her face scrunching with concentration. I've got her. Oh God, she's in pain, terrible pain. Kruger still has her. He's hurting her, toying with her. What else? Chris asked. I don't... What else? He demanded, anger creeping into his voice again. Suffering, that's all I can feel. Kat's suffering. Alex opened her eyes, tears falling from them onto the dirt. She'll never rest in peace while Kruger has her in his power. She looked at Chris, then across to Peter, standing nearby. None of us will. Fight him, Chris replied. We can't hope to beat him individually, but if we work together, maybe we can. Maybe we will. Shouldn't we go get the cops for help? Peter persisted. And tell them what, Peter? Alex said. They already know about Kruger, and they've done nothing to stop him or to help us. Jesus, they virtually put me under house arrest. You think asking them to nicely help us will make any difference? What about our parents? Mom's already decided I'm losing it, Peter. The only question is how long before she sends me to Weston Hills. Alex stood up, moving closer to him. Maybe we should ask your old man for help. Do you honestly think he'd come rushing to our aid? Peter shook his head. My family's scared to be near me, Chris admitted. They think I'm going to burn them like I burnt my dad's hands. So that's where his anger was coming from, Alex realized. At least some of it. She could also recognize shame among Chris's storm of emotions, buried deep inside the rage, fueling it, driving it. Heather's mom would rather drown herself in gin than face reality, Chris added. let alone face what we're up against. Peter shook his head sadly. So we're on our own. We have each other, Chris maintained. 4 of us against Kruger? That's got to be fighting odds at least, right? I hope you're right, Alex thought, but kept her doubts to herself. If we want to beat this bastard, we'll have to do it ourselves. But how? Peter was close to tears, his eyes dwelling on Kat's graves. Chris folded his arms. The fucker gave us those abilities. Maybe we can use them against him. Alex shook her head. He'd have thought of that, wouldn't he? Maybe not. He figured we'd cave in straight away, but we haven't, Chris replied. I say we fight back. It's better than waiting for him to take us out one by one. Better to die fighting than on our knees. You're right, Alex admitted. It's got to be worth a try. Peter? The other youth took off his glasses and wiped the moisture from his eyes. All right, I'm in too. That just leaves Heather, Alex said. Chris looked back to the graveyard's gates, but Heather was still not in view. She should have been here by now. I haven't seen her at all today. Which one of you talked to her last? Me, I think, Alex offered. She called this morning, said she'd already talked to Peter about meeting here. You don't think that she's... Peter's voice trailed off. That he's... Chris shook his head. No way. I'd know. I'm sure of it. I thought I would too, Alex added. But we can't be sure. If Kruger's found a way to overcome the hypnosil, who knows what else he can do? Oh, shit, Chris whispered. Heather. The 3 of them started running. Tammy Sutherland staggered in through the kitchen door, gin bottles clinking against each other. She dropped her keys on the breakfast counter, dumped the bag in beside them, and swiftly removed the lid from her fresh supply of liquor. Hey, Heather, I'm home, honey, Tammy called out before pouring a more than generous slug of gin down her throat. I wasn't feeling too good, so I took the rest of the afternoon off. Thought maybe we'd pamper each other since you haven't got any school this week. Another tip of the bottle, another grateful swallow. Heather, you home, darling? A steady dripping sound got Tammy's gin-sodden attention, making her stop and listen. The sound wasn't coming from inside the kitchen. The dripping was out in the hall. Tammy lurched over to the door and peered through it. Yeah, there was something dripping in the hall. It made a puddle close to the stairs, a red puddle. Tammy moved closer, keeping one hand on the nearest wall for support. If there was a puddle on the floor, then the dripping must be coming from above the puddle, right? She looked up and frowned. Why was there a big red stain on the ceiling? As she got nearer, one of the drips fell from the edge of the stain onto her face. It trickled down her skin and into her mouth, spreading across her tongue in a moment, warm and wet, tasting of iron, and... Tammy couldn't explain why she went up the stairs to the landing. She knew that must be there. To have made such a stain on the ceiling, pint after pint of the crimson liquid must have been spilled, enough to soak through the carpet and floorboards, and on through the ceiling panels. Despite knowing all that, she had to see what was on the landing. Some awful compulsion drawing her up the stairs, drawing her to see what was waiting there. So she went, and she saw, and she screamed. Alex, Peter, and Chris arrived at Heather's house to find her mom collapsed on the front steps, her hands covered in blood, her mouth moving soundlessly. Chris ran inside, crying in anguish at what he found in the hallway. Alex heard him sprint up the stairs, then another cry, this time much longer. A howl of pure rage and misery, like some wounded animal. She and Peter exchanged a look, already suspecting what Chris had found. Call the police, Alex urged Peter. You better ask for an ambulance, too. I don't think Heather will need it, he said sadly. For her mom, Alex said before going inside. The hallway was awash with blood, at least 2 sets of shoe prints visible on the crimson-soaked carpet. She stilled herself and started up the stairs. A trail of smeared blood was visible on the wall, probably from Heather's mom. Chris had collapsed on the landing, his eyes staring glassily at what was left of Heather. Alex turned to follow his gaze and gasped, a stream of bile rising from her gut. She ran into the bathroom and puked all over the floor, retching again and again. Only when she was sure her stomach was empty did Alex dare come back out. Heather's corpse was naked, not just of clothes, but also of skin. Every square inch had been flailed from her body. The fragments of ripped skin stuck to the walls. the floor, even to the ceiling in places. What was left of Heather glistened wetly, surrounded by a pool of congealing blood. Her torso had been gutted, organs savagely cut out and ripped apart before being thrown aside, discarded like so much confetti. Above her body, a message was smeared on the wall and read, 3 down, 3 to go. Alex knew that for certain that Kruger's disciple had done this. It was the price of acceptance set by that monster. A life for a life. And Heather was the victim. Peter came up the stairs, careful not to step in the bloody footprints of those who had been there before him. Is she? Yes, Alex said. I've called the police and an ambulance. They'll be here soon. We should go if we don't want to spend another night at the station. Peter made sure not to look at the source of all the blood, keeping his gaze fixed on Alex. He pointed at Chris. Is he all right? Shock, I guess. He hasn't said anything yet. Alex knelt beside Chris, gently shaking his shoulder. We've got to go now. There's nothing more we can do here. Heather's gone. He blinked and saw her, perhaps for the first time since Alex came up the stairs. We can't leave her like that, Chris said. We have to. The police are going to be swarming all over this place in a few minutes. We've got to get out of here. Alex is right, Peter added. There's nothing more we can do for Heather, Chris. Chris blinked again, noticing Peter. Yes, there is. We can kill Kruger. We can make sure she rests in peace away from that sick fuck. You're welcome to try, another voice interjected. But I doubt you little shits have got the balls for the job. Alex felt cold shivers of fear running through her body. Not just her own fear, but that of Chris and Peter, too. The voice belonged to Kruger, of course. Alex twisted around to face him, but it wasn't Kruger smiling at her from the other side of the landing. It was Heather's skinned and gutted remains, her torso folding forward at the waist in a macabre mockery of something sitting upright. Fuck, Alex whispered. Can't you leave her alone, you bastard? She's dead. Let her be. What was left of Heather stood up, more of her insides spilling out on the floor, as the reanimated corpse got to its feet. Her dead face split into a ghoulish smile, the eyeballs dancing inside their sockets. Heather's skinless head tilted forward and looked at the rest of her body. Kruger's laughter taunted the 3 teenagers. Guess beauty is only skin deep after all. Huh. Chris sat up on his feet, fists clenched, spoiling for a fight. What do you want from us, you bastard? What? Kill for me. Spread my name. Feed me with terror. Make me strong. Heather's corpse folded its arms. Or weren't you paying attention? We won't do it, Chris snarled back. We won't be your fucking puppets. Are you sure about that? I'll make it worth your while. The bloody body began touching itself, stroking and caressing what was left of its torso, mimicking the movements of someone making love. Oh, Chris, you're so strong and powerful. Hold me, Chris. Hold me closer. Fuck you, Chris screamed, the veins on his neck bulging. Only Alex and Peter holding him back prevented Chris attacking Heather's corpse. I think you already did that, big boy. Kruger laughed at Chris, laughed at all of them. Alex could hear sirens approaching. Nearly time for me to go, Kruger announced. Heather's corpse pointed at itself. This bitch is with me now. Who's next? If anyone would like to die, please put your hands up. Tires screeched to a halt outside the house. Alex could hear car doors opening and then slamming shut again, and men shouting to each other in the streets. The cops had arrived. No doubt Heather's blood-stained mom on the front steps was giving them a moment of pause. I can almost hear the safeties on their guns being flicked off, Alex thought. She tugged on Chris's arms. We've got to go. We've got to get away from here, she urged. Kill you later, dudes, Kruger's rasping voice announced. Then he was gone. Heather's corpse collapsed on the banisters of the stairwell before tumbling over and smashing down on the bloody steps below, bones snapping and breaking in a wet jumble of noise. Peter looked past Heather's remains to the front door. The cops are right outside. We can't risk going down the stairs, guys. Alex glanced around the doorways leading off the landing. Chris, you know this place better than us. Is there any way out of here from upstairs? "Heather's bedroom is at the back of the house," he replied numbly, still staring at the pool of blood where his girlfriend had died. "There's an old climbing frame running down the wall beneath her window. Her dad used to grow prize-winning roses." Alex and Peter bundled Chris into Heather's bedroom. Peter opened the window and leaned out. It looked safe for the moment. He climbed through the gap and down the frame, followed by Chris and then Alex. They could hear the police moving through the house, each new discovery punctuated by blasphemy and retching. Once the three were on the ground, they ran to the back fence. Alex was last to climb the high wooden wall, pausing to look back at the house. Officer Goodman was at the back door, shouting and pointing at them, reaching for his service pistol. Alex hit the ground running on the other side of the fence. Joyce had spent the morning trying to work and failing, her head full of worries about Alex. Dr. Taubman was well regarded in his field, but she still couldn't bring herself to believe his diagnosis. "I know my daughter," Joyce thought. "She has had her problems, but she was getting better. I can't accept that she's gotten so ill so fast. It doesn't make sense." After sifting listlessly through her salad at lunch, Joyce asked for the afternoon off. "I'll go home and see how Alex is doing," she thought to herself. "Maybe talk some sense into her, or at least see for myself whether Taubman is right. I can't give up on her, not yet. Alex is all I've got left." It had taken Joyce another hour to clear her desk so she could leave early in good conscience. Driving back to Elm Street, a growing sense of dread gnawed at her empty stomach, churning inside her. Something bad was happening. She could feel it. Joyce turned into Elm Street and braked. The road was closed off, and a half-dozen police cars blocked her way, while men in uniform sealed the street with black and yellow striped tape. Already a morbidly curious crowd had gathered, and was straining against the temporary barrier, trying to get a better look at what was going on. Joyce relaxed slightly when she realized it wasn't her house where all the police activity was focused. But there was no easy way of getting past the police, so she parked and walked over for a closer look. A woman about her age was being treated in the back of an ambulance, hands covered in blood, her face a blank mask, eyes staring sightlessly into the distance. Bloody handprints were visible on the front door of the house, through which cops and county officials were bustling back and forth. Another police car nosed its way through the throng of rubberneckers trying to get closer to the scene. Eventually, it gave up and stopped, a man in his 50s with the sheriff's badge emerging from the vehicle. Joyce recognized one of the cops maintaining the police cordon. It was Officer Goodman, who had interviewed Alex a few days earlier. Maybe he could tell her what was going on. She waved at him, but he seemed unhappy to see her there, and ignored the gesture. Instead, he approached the sheriff, and the two men consulted in low voices, occasionally glancing across at Joyce. She'd seen those troubled looks before. She'd been right. Something was wrong here, and somehow Alex was involved. Oh, God. Maybe Dr. Taubman was right. Maybe I should have let him take Alex to Weston Hills last night. "Please don't let my baby be dead," Joyce prayed. Okay, this has been chapters 15 and 16 of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Suffer the Children. We will have one more upload that will be the conclusion of the book, chapters 17, 18, 19, and the epilogue. And when we're finished with this book, we will start up the next day on Jason X, The Experiment, which is a direct sequel to Jason X the movie. And it's actually written by the same author that wrote the novelization for Jason X. So it's bound to be pretty good, I would think. Again, in the comments section, answer the trivia question from the beginning of the video. The character Kat, who was murdered earlier in the book, what was her favorite hairstyle to wear? The way she wore her hair in this book. Put your answer in the comments section, and I will pick a subscriber from all the correct answers in the comments. I will pick a subscriber at random as long as they got the answer correct. And I will announce who the winner is whenever I upload the first couple chapters of Jason X, The Experiment. And the winner will receive my copy of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Suffer the Children, the book we've been going through in these past few videos. And they will need to contact me through social media. I'll give them the information to contact me, and I will ship the book out to them with a bonus item as well that's connected to the Freddy Krueger universe. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you soon with the conclusion of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Suffer the Children. Until then, sleep tight.
never sleep again.